Yeah, my name is Steve. You can find me on Twitter at RickStevensPI, and I am joined by the lovely Hannah. Say hello to everybody, Hannah.
Hey guys, I'm Hannah, and you can find me pretty much everywhere at the handle at Whole Noddle. Yeah.
And John.
I'm John. I'm at Bobby37 on Twitter. We're not
So,
basing it on any measurable sort of metrics here. It's not what is best to min max with or what is best to role play with. It's just kind of, do you like it? How much do you like it? A, B, C, or D. We will start with the Bard.
So I played a bard not too long ago. My bard character was my favorite of all of them. I wish I had put more into role playing her, but playing her was very fun in battle because she had not only melee attacks, but she could also do magic attacks. Some of the magic spells that she had, you had to be strategic about them. One time I had a group of enemies just running back and forth to like a tune of a song, so everyone was getting attacks of opportunities as they were just like shuffling back and forth with the Cupid shuffle or something. Yeah, and the bard also has bardic inspiration that they can give that increases which die it is given a level. So you can legit buff people up with that inspiration.
so would you like put Bard in the top tier?
Oh, I would, yes, personally. You guys might have different opinions and it would be wrong. But the bard is definitely S tier. Like you can really mold your bard into whatever you want it to be. They don't have to be over sexualized. They could just be a cool band geek. And they even have healing abilities if that's the route you want to take. Like really it could be anything, and it has so many background options that would make sense for it that
Yeah, the
it,
trope of the horny bard is just way overplayed. But I agree, they don't just have to be that, sexy bard. There's a bunch of different subclasses. So,
But we do have to kind of consider that that is very often how they are played. It's definitely a letdown. Some people can pull it off, and some people are being overly creepy and being like, well, that's what my character would do. And
sexy bards invariably spend more time flirting with NPCs than they do with PCs. And I often find myself in the dungeon master role at that time. And
and
ours
you,
is a family game,
yeah,
right? It is weird for me to try to NPC role play a flirtatious scene with one of my children or son-in-laws. So you pick a different way to play the bard for me, please. I believe it's really high up there. I think I'd put it in the A tier, not the S tier. Disclaimer, I've never played a bard before, seen plenty of them played. Maybe my opinion would be different if I played a bard. So.
I think I agree with you about it being A tier, not S tier, partially because you see so many people using it as an excuse to be creepy,
yeah.
and partially because people don't take advantage of the opportunity to do karaoke at the D&D table. And
Now,
And
yeah. What did you write?
he's making a new category. It's a S when not creepy. I would absolutely put it up in the S when not creepy
Yes,
category,
all
but
right.
not all the way up into the S one.
Sorry, I
because
didn't mean for to interrupt you. I was just
no, you're good. But yes, the way I have experienced Bard is much different than the stereotype. So I understand putting it at A because if I just had to deal with the stereotypes of bards the entire time, oh, I would not have a good time. But
yeah.
I remember that campaign, we were also on a boat, so we also got to start quite a few sea shanties, so that was fun.
That's
That
right.
was really fun.
Oh, so then we agreed it's somewhere between the S and the A, so we'll create a new category called S when you're not playing it like a creepy bastard.
Yes.
Let's get Cleric out. Cleric was my first ever character, and I kind of hope I never go back. I won't lie. Yeah, that's a pretty solid starting spot. um, it's a good base character to start off D&D with, but to me, it just wasn't that fun.
I feel like a lot of groups, when they hear, oh, I'm playing Cleric, like their first thought is heal bot. That's our heal bot. They're going to do nothing but heal. They're going to heal all of my stupid decisions, and that's what you end up doing. And that really
Mm-hmm.
weighs it down because there are a lot of cool things you can do with the domains and the fact that you can wear heavy armor and buff yourself and be kind of a martial without being full martial.
Mm-hmm.
I think the perception that it gets shoved into healbot status when healbot isn't really totally that fun in D&D kind of keeps it hanging back.
Yeah.
Yeah, back in the day, at the beginnings of D&D, I think he was considered to be the second best fighter in a group
Yeah.
because they were essentially a fighter type that could do healing. And I think over the years it's kind of moved away from that the way it's played, and it is like a Vaca formation type of character that going to run in and do the healing. I've always found this is the one. This is the one. If I had to tell you which character I find the most boring in D&D, it's Cleric. I have always found them to be boring. Maybe because I've seen it played as this is just a heal bot, and I'm like, yeah, if your only reason you're in this party is to heal the rest of us while we do the fun stuff, how could that ever be fun to play? Back in the day, that was it. That was how you got healing. But everybody's spell list has evolved over time, and character abilities have evolved over time. There are plenty of ways to have healing in your party without throwing somebody into you got to be a cleric. There are so many other ways to get healing. You can put together now a party of adventurers without a cleric and be okay.
Yeah.
Back in the day, that was sacrilegious to say that statement. You had to have a cleric. But I always found it kind of boring, and you can get healing a bunch of different ways. I would put it in D myself.
I have a particular class in mind for D, which we'll get to later.
And you
But
figure this one's not that bad, so it can't go all the way down to D. It would take away from how much you want to dog the other class.
pretty much, yeah.
Fair enough. I can go with a C on this.
What do you think, Hannah?
I'm good with a C.
But we're going to get some hate for that one. There are cleric lovers out there that are going to just tell us why we are wrong. And they're right. We are wrong, but that's how I feel.
It could be better because when I first started playing D&D, I didn't see a lot of going into their patron god, but nowadays it seems like a more integral part of role-playing a cleric and a paladin and warlock, whatnot, to be more into contact with their patron gods and to have that dynamic, because that's the integral of those classes. Like, they get most of their power from their connection or devotion to those gods. So I think now it would be more interesting to play, but when I played it, it was really just running around healing everyone up from their stupid decisions.
What you said about playing into the gods and having that unique opportunity, I wholeheartedly agree with, because the gods being a living, you can go visit them and interact with them. So it's cool when the cleric has that opportunity to do that.
The role play aspect of clerics, as they're connecting with their deity, could be awesome. I mean, Critical Role did this really good. That connection and the role play that is involved with that. If I had seen that more in games, I'd probably think higher of cleric. So I think I am now even more comfortable with making it a C instead of the D I wanted, because that role play possibility is there. But I can tell you one thing I really hate as a player is cleric in that turn undead or in 5th level destroy undead. You know, your party walks in, you're low level, here comes 8 skeletons at you, and everybody's like, yes, we finally get to fight. And the cleric goes, turn undead, and they all run to the other side of the room. You're like, well, that wasn't fun.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with that because it's underwhelming from every side of the table but the clerics. Like, the cleric
Right.
feels like the most powerful person, sure,
I
but
just flexed like hell, and everybody else is like, ah, dude.
yeah. We will do the rogue next.
Nice. So can we just put rogue in the S category and move on?
Yeah.
I don't want to sleep on the couch tonight, so it's going to be an S, but I'm going to keep talking for a minute. The actual satisfaction of playing a rogue has got to be through the roof because you get to roll so many dice. There's so many dice you get to play with every turn, and the role playing aspect of it is not too shabby either. Like, you don't have to be stabby, stabby, steely, stilly bad guy. You can be Inigo Montoya.
So in battle, their sneak attack dice amazing, right? So they're only getting one chance to hit, but and it's not that difficult to set yourself up so that you get sneak attacks 95% of the time. Um, so
Especially
it's
with a
almost,
good party that'll help you and get flanking opportunities and
yep.
all that.
So, you know, you're almost always going to get that. They got really cool subclasses. It's just a blast to play. The uh, the assassinate feature, if I attack somebody who hasn't taken a turn in battle yet, I get advantage on my attack against them. And if I attack somebody who's surprised, any hit against a surprised creature is a critical hit. And on critical hits, your 2d6 or 3d6 or whatever for sneak attack, that all gets doubled too. And you could just, so it makes assassination actually possible, which is really cool. But you also got things like the arcane trickster, right? So I'm a rogue and I get a little bit of magic. So as a player, the playability, the enjoyment factor of playing a rogue, way up here. As a DM, sometimes I think those sons of bitches are too OP. They're too overpowered. It's like the rules just don't apply. You know, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to run in with my rogue and I'm going to poke him with my rapier and get my sneak attack bonus, and then I'm going to jaunt away. And I'm like, okay, well, the guy's going to take an opportunity attack. And then the rogue player says, no, I've got cunning action or whatever the hell it's called, and I can disengage it with, son of a bitch. Okay. Well, fine. The guy finally gets a swing at you and he hits you for 12 points of damage. No, I've got uncanny dodge. He only takes half of that damage. Like, son of a bitch, do the rules ever apply to you? As a DM, I sometimes get a little irked at it, but that just proves the point of what a great character it is. The role play aspects of it can be really good, but kind of dangerous, right? If the wrong person is playing that rogue and, you know, starts wanting to sneakily try to steal from members of the party and stuff like that, that's just a recipe for disaster. But that comes down to game management, knowing your players, session zero.
I am currently playing a rogue, which is very fun. This man literally just stands in one spot and takes his shot. And if he misses it,
He's
oh
dead.
well. But if he hits it, it's like headshots because all of the added bonuses. And I remember Emily's character in our previous game, Inigo Montoya, was just amazing. And to go with that pickpocketing feature, she would use it in the reverse. Like, my character went to, like, put her hands in her pocket once and, like, pulled out a handful of spiders that she had just put in there and was like, "Oh my god." So,
So
instead
it was
of
the put pocket skill, not the pickpocket skill. I like it.
yes.
By the way, my assassin rogue is
Mhm.
Tabaxi, and that's a great combination.
So, up next, we have the Paladin. And this, for me, is my absolute lowest. I fucking hate them. They're terrible. They're stupid. A lot of the time, it makes the player have, well, it's what my character would do syndrome, and they act like they're the most stuck up, righteous cop in all of whatever realm you're in. They want to donate all their money to the church and all this mess. I don't like them.
The fact that I had to go let my dog in and I just come back to the description, did not hear what we were talking about. I know we were talking about Paladins. Yeah, I played a Paladin once. It was very like self-righteous because you're kind of scared of falling out of grace because you could lose all your power in an instant if you make one bad choice. Now, it isn't that serious in actuality, but I think in the Paladin character's mind, it is.
It's a tough line to role play, right? Between the being the annoying type of that's what my character would do, and being that I've got to be true to this character. So there's a lot of subclasses, a lot of different oaths of this, oaths of that you could take. So it's no longer as limited as it used to be. But at the start, it was paladin, lawful, good, period. In earlier editions, I guess you could still do it in this edition, but you could do things that would prompt the DM to say, well, you just based on that action, your alignment has now changed. You can't be a paladin anymore. Where does the thrill come in D&D? Right? It's battling things, obtaining loot, solving quests, right? Well, the first two of those can absolutely run afoul of the paladin in your party, killing things and getting loot. And the quest thing, he's like, I'm all for it. But the other two, well, the rest of us would like to,
I mean,
get some
even
of that.
then, if it's a quest for the wrong person, the paladin might be like, I don't think my god would like that. I don't think he's a good enough person that we should be working for him. And
But they are really good fighters, and they bring that smite, which can be as powerful or more powerful than sneak attack. It's limited by the number of times you can use it between rests, so it's not as much a sneak attack, but it's martial abilities. And they bring some healing with them and whatever. That's enough for me to take it up out of D and maybe into like a C category. They are pretty powerful fighters.
very overcomplicated for my taste. I think that is what keeps it in D for me. You're definitely right, it's strong. You're definitely right that gameplay wise, you have a lot of ability, you have a lot of versatility. If we want to decide that it's C, I'm okay with that.
I think younger Hannah, who had played a paladin, would have put it higher. But like as the years have progressed and you see other people playing paladins, it does get a little sour. I don't think I would put it in D. I'd probably put it in C. I can see how it's a mess to deal with as a DM and as a player, because the Paladin I think was my second player ever, second or third, and it was a bit confusing, and I don't think we didn't get very high, so I also didn't get to that 5th level threshold when a lot of stuff starts to come in.
So you'd go
Oh,
C.
I would.
Okay, 2 out of 3 say C. Warlock.
So I think the role play potential of this thing is way high. It requires a lot of the DM, right? The DM's got to be able to help the role play there. Um, so that can be tough on DMs. I'm attributing my weaknesses to everybody else. It was tough on me as a DM, but I think that role play stuff is really cool there.
The Warlock has a smaller list of spells that come back on short rest.
The combat abilities is medium to high. They're still squishy magic user, but they get their spells back quicker, which means they're not conserving spells as much in a fight. You know, how many times have you been in a battle and you wish the magic user in your party would just go ahead and blast something, and that magic user is sitting there going, "I've only got 2 spell slots left, and I don't know how long it is till we're going to take a long rest. I got to conserve my resources here." So I would give it a solid B for the Warlock.
I was honestly going to put it at least A. I love the idea of the character. With the Paladin and Cleric, their relation to their god is either devotion or calling to fulfill a righteous need. Warlocks legit have a motive. They want something. They have sought out this alliance almost. And that adds so much more depth to a character instead of just blind devotion to something. This warlock is seeking to please a god to get more from that god in return. And I think that's such a cool dynamic to see and play, that the role playing and then the actual playing of the character is so cool and have so many options that I would honestly put it around A. But I could be swayed because I don't have much experience with it.
As we've mentioned, the spells coming back after a short rest, and you get a lot more short rests than you do long rests. They have some of the best cantrips in the game. The roleplay things with it, it can be super cringy, but it can also be super cool.
There's something about, I don't know, the name, the way they've built the mechanics for this character or this class or what. But to me, there always seems to be evil undercurrent to warlocks. I would never be comfortable playing an evil character, and something about we may be a little roguish, little r, in the way we go about things, but in the end, right, we're looking to make things better and be the good guys and the heroes and all that. To me, that's part of the draw of RPGs. So if I take that bias because it's not true that warlocks are inherently evil, I could move up from a B to an A on that. I still don't think it goes up to the S category though.
Because of that perception and the opportunity for a lot of players out there to have come across the stereotypical cringe lock, I'm okay with A2. Let's go with the fighting man. Fighter can be a little milquetoast. 5e especially, I feel like, has brought a lot of useful, colorful tools to him. I don't think it's particularly bad at anything, but I don't think it's particularly good at anything either or exciting.
Yeah, there's nothing that really draws me to it. The fighter is a base, and I feel like if there's something you want to do, there's a different class you can do with it.
Every party had to have fighter back in the day, and it was really that was the cool class, right? So at the beginning, all about fighters, and then kind of in the middle through 3.5 and up to here, it's like, there's so many other cool ways that I can be the hack and slash guy at the front of the party. And so it lost some of its luster. I think they've done a really good job of coming up with subclasses to help make it a little bit more exciting to play. I'm just not sure that they're ever going to get past the perception that that happened in the middle, where it's like, fighter's kind of boring. There's sexier ways to play that. So it kind of gets, even if all the abilities and all the subclasses and features of those are there to make, I just think a lot of people, myself included, are like, I want to say B. I want to say B, and I almost feel like that's too low because of their martial abilities and the things they've done there. But I'm absolutely influenced by the rule of cool, and right now, fighter is kind of a boring class.
Yeah, it's very mid for me. I feel like there are interesting ways to play it. Like, as you're talking, I just came up with the idea of a like a veteran player, like an older fighter who literally is probably background like folk hero or something, that they used to be the talk of the town, but they like low key retired, went off, had a family, and now wants to go back adventuring again and
It's
has
like
to like,
overweight Russell Crowe after the
yes,
Gladiator.
like it was hot stuff back in the day, but now it's like thrown into a bigger pool of fish to where it no longer stands out. So to me, it's very mid, and right now our graph mid is B. So that's probably where I would put it. That or lower, honestly.
I concur wholeheartedly with a B because it is plain, it is vanilla, it is milquetoast, but there's not a whole lot better for a starting player,
Mm-hmm.
like to
That's a
get
really
in and immediately be able to hit the ground running and be a very prepared user of the class. I think
Yeah.
that's important to have in the game. So he does definitely fill a role still, he or she, or they. But then again, like there are too many options, and I would never personally be like, man, I really wish I could play a fighter.
as a starting class for somebody just getting into D&D. Perfection, right? Because one, you're going to get in there and you're going to be able to do the hack and slash and be in the fights, which is exciting. It's relatively straightforward. Not a whole bunch of weird features you got to figure out. I can only do this when the moon is half full and the grass beneath me is blue. And if that occurs and an enemy is within 5 feet of another ally, blah, blah, blah. For new players, absolutely, I think this is the sweet spot because you can learn a lot about those other classes by playing with them. And it's hard to learn the game and learn your class at the same time when they're both complicated. Take a nice,
And it's forgiving. You don't find yourself out of spell slots halfway through the dungeon and be like, oh shit.
and you're
You
never bored.
Nope, you're never bored. You always run to the front and start swinging. Let's go with the monk.
So instead of starting off at D and then figuring out how high up it rises, I really think it ought to start up at S because that's just where it's going to end up at. This is my all-time favorite class. Love this class. Not the best fighter, but gets a lot of attack rolls. Right between martial arts, which is just a bonus action, get an extra attack with the hands, unarmed attack, or spending key points for a flurry of blows. You get 3 attacks in a round, and then at 5th level it gets another attack, so you can have 4 attacks in a round. When you get up that high, you start getting the ability to do stunning strikes, which would render an opponent unable to do anything until the end of their next turn. Shoot, deflect arrows. What a badass feature that is. Somebody shoots an arrow at you, you got a chance to grab that thing out of midair and fling it back at them for damage against them. So, not as powerful damage per strike as some of the other martial classes, but so many strikes in a round. And the role play aspect, role play in combat is cool, right? Because instead of just I roll 2 to hit, they hit. No, I do a punch to the gut and then a spinning roundhouse kick. You can do some great role playing with these, and then they've got some really cool subclasses. I really like Drunken Master. That one's kind of cool. Um, Way of the Sun Soul is cool because you get like a, a, a beam attack, kind of like a magic attack that does radiant damage. Yeah, I would put it way up there. Like for me, it's an S. I know it's not going to fall that way for everybody else, but for me, Monk is the best. I love them, and a lot of people will disagree with me on that.
The role play opportunities with a monk, the coolness, the actual battle usability, probably all F's. Just the amount of color you can put into it is really cool. The main problem I have with it is the usability of key dice. And I think it's a little overcomplicated. I think it could be streamlined, but that's a very small, like, that takes it possibly from S to A, but no lower for me.
Yeah,
I
I get
think-
your point. It can be a little crunchy, but not as bad as some of the magic user classes as
Yeah.
far as trying to figure it out. So I don't think monk outscores rogue in this tiering. So I could go with A as well. Yeah, I love monks. You can do cool shit with them. Put them in the A category.
I agree with you on that. Let's move it right along to Ranger.
I love playing rangers, but it's because I have this concept in my head of this arrow shooting Robin Hood type guy, and with some of the subclasses, I can even picture myself as almost a Witcher type guy, and I just think that's cool. I just like the concept of the ranger. They are not the best martialist, and they're not the best magic user, but just all around, I think they're cool. I would give them at least a B.
It's very easy to forget favored enemy and favored terrain and that kind of stuff. And if it's forgotten and never given any sort of value, then why didn't you play a fighter with ranged weapons?
Right. If I don't get to experience those things in the game, then I'm just a weak fighter.
You said put him in B.
I think so. Yeah.
I also really love the animal companion. I'm kind of mad that they took Druid's animal companion and Ranger still has it. All right, Druid.
Druid.
All right, Blood Hunter. Just kidding. I really like playing Druids. It's more of a thing for me about the connection to animals and nature, and you have a lot of versatility. You have some pretty good spells, or you have something like the Moon Druid, which at sea you can turn into an octopus and grab people off of their boat and throw them in the water. You can turn into a bear and you can sink hit points out of the opposing attacks so that your team doesn't have to have healing. Then when you get knocked out of your form, you can do a couple heals on anybody who's down. Go right back in on your next bonus action. I really like that versatility part of it.
It's a really well-rounded class. So you can tank, you can heal, you can throw offensive magic. And, if there's one weak area, it is melee, hand-to-hand stuff. But as far as well-rounded, getting a bunch of the great stuff from all the other classes, it's there. And there's so many, so people usually talk about role play and combat as separate things, but role playing in combat, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, is really cool, and druids can do this. I watched a guy play a druid where he summoned some animals. I don't know the name of the feature, but it was like a bunch of wolves. And then the next round, he shape-shifted. He turned into a wolf. So now the enemies have got a bunch of wolves, but they don't know which one is the actual player character. And just watching the strategy there with that was really cool.
And
so
they all have pack tactics.
Right, and it's up there. I don't know that it's rogue cool, but I think it's at least bard cool.
Next, let's do Wizard. It's probably the most straightforward of the magic classes. It is pretty strong. It's probably the milquetoast fighter of the casting side of things.
The whole spellbook thing seems unnecessarily complicated to me, to the point where I've seen a lot of DMs just kind of, yeah, let's treat it like the encumbrance rules. They're there, but unless it's not really crazy situation, I'm not even going to pay attention to them. Yeah, I think there are some spells that only wizards can get, and some of them are pretty cool. Like you, to me, of the magic users, they're probably the most boring. I don't know that I'd feel comfortable leaving them as a D,
No,
uh, but I would think B or C. Kind of,
they
yeah,
do
C.
get really powerful in the end.
So where would you put them?
I think they're a B for me. I don't
I
want to
can
put them
go.
at cleric level.
I can go with B.
I think we can leave her right there and move on to sorcerer.
Yeah, so for me, the having those sorcery points that you can buy extra spell slots with, and then the role playing ability. So I'd go A or B on sorcerer. I think I'm rating it a little higher than you would because I like the role playing ability, and I like the ability for them to buy spell slots.
I definitely think A or B is too high for me. I think wizard solidly outshines the sorcerer. I think in a lot of people's views, I agree with you on the roleplay thing. Like the egomaniacal, it's in my blood type dude could be really fun to go after, but you get smaller spell slots, I think. Sure, you get to buy more with your sorcerer points, but and you can trade them out, unlike wizards that you're kind of stuck with whatever you have in your book. Just in playability for me, it doesn't
Yeah.
seem as playable as wizard.
So you're
I'm
at a C, I'm at a B. You wouldn't go B because that makes him even with the wizard.
I mean, I'm kind of at a D,
Okay.
but
Okay, well,
I could
then if I could
be
talk you
worth.
up to a C, I'll be happy.
We could put it at B and just have it be ranked in the tier and make sure that wizard is ahead. I would be cool with that because you are right. It does have a lot of potential, and the coolness is there, and the coolness is like the most important part of D&D. So let's finish out the original classes. Go with Barbarian.
Ooh. Barbarians are cool, right? They're almost as easy to play as a fighter. But then you throw in rages and reckless attacks and frenzied attacks. It gets just a little bit more complicated, but not much. But as for me, as far as martial, pure martial class, front line, hack and slasher, there's nothing cooler than a barbarian. And you can role play them so many different ways based on the race you pick, right? I've got a goblin, barbarian, berserker, smallest guy in the whole party, but not in his head. And they're just fun. You can go tropish with the dumb brute grog from Critical Role kind of thing, and just have a blast with the role play. And you're always having fun in combat, always. So as far as enjoyable to play, I would put it A category.
I think everybody at some point in their lives should play the Big Dumb Brute because it's big dumb fun.
It is.
And
Thank you.
like it A is a good place for it. You're right. The rogue has too much. Maybe we should have just made a rogue class up at the top instead of putting them in S so we're not always comparing. We will move on to the Artificer, the Tinkerer, the Magic Machine Man or woman or non binary.
So I've played an artificer. I had a lot of fun, and I'm not usually a magic user type player, but I did take the subclass of battlesmith, I think it's called. Um, So I was able to wear heavier armor. The magic infusions were fun to do. Every couple levels, you get some more infusions, so you could create your own magic items. It was much more limited on number of spell slots. The greatest, and not very many cantrips. Um, that may have changed if I had taken different subclass there, but it was a lot of fun, and so it's probably not as powerful as say wizard or sorcerer, but role playing and fun to play, I would put it up at A along with Warlock.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and move it up there, and I will talk a little bit about it. I haven't played it, but it looks really cool. One of the few classes that really comes off straight away as super unique.
I recommend everybody ought to play it one time. Kind of cool. I would play it again just to try some of the other subclasses out.
And that brings us to our last class, the Blood Hunter.
It's Matthew Mercer creation.
You may not know who he is. He is the voice of Cassidy in Overwatch, for those of you who don't know who Matthew Mercer is.
I gotta check out Overwatch. But first I have to figure out, is that a movie, a television show, or a game?
It's a game. I could have went with the voice of Jotaro on JoJo's Bizarre Adventure in the English dub, the voice of Hit in the Dragon Ball Super English dub. Like, you could go way down the list on his credits.
Matthew Mercer is just one of those guys who does a bunch of voiceovers and you never see him anywhere.
You see him sometimes nowadays. Every now and then he does an interview.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sure all of our participants in chat and watching the stream know Matthew Mercer is the DM and one of the geniuses behind Critical Role. He's a great guy. Just seems like a great guy. I never met him in person, but this is a really cool character. I played one time. So martial class with a lot of magical stuff in there. I've heard that he was trying to kind of emulate the Witcher kind of thing. So there's blood magic you can use, that, by utilizing your own blood, you can create certain things. And then there may have been some utilize other people's blood and you can do certain things. Some cool subclasses. Overall, the concept of the character was really cool. Great role play capabilities in it, and just a rule of cool off the freaking charts. But I can tell you that the little booklet that I got from DM's Guild, the rule set for all of the different blood magics and those that were some, the features that were tied to the different subclasses, it was very lengthy, very thorough, and one might say complicated. And it was tough. It was tough to play and figure out how I was playing, and it required a lot of reading and rereading and trying to figure it out, talking to my DM. So, like, almost too crunchy, like overly crunchy, but so freaking cool to play. So I would love to put this at an A because I had so much fun playing it, but I think if I'm honest about it, until they find a way to kind of streamline it and get it down to a more manageable set of rules for this thing, that it's probably a B.
I can concur with that. And that leaves us with, in S tier, the Rogue, the Druid. In S tier, when not creepy, the Bard. In A, we have the Warlock, Artificer, Monk, and Barbarian. B, we have the Fighter, Wizard, Ranger, Sorcerer, Blood Hunter. C, we have the Cleric and the Paladin.
John, that was a lot of fun. Thanks everybody for joining us. Follow me on Twitter at Rick Stevens PI. Bye everybody.
Bye.